Hi there, welcome back to Unit 10 Learning Target. I can graph quadratic functions. So it's kind of the part two, second day. So I just want to take a look at some graphs, all the graphs that we've kind of done this year. First thing, you can see I have graphed 3x squared minus 6x minus 3. Okay, so the graph is already here, but I want to think about all the information you could come up with just given that function. So before anything else, I can see 3 goes into all of those. So if I know that later, if I'm factoring, I'm going to factor out a 3. So we've talked at length about the line of symmetry and how to find that. So you know it's negative b over 2a. Okay, so our b is negative 6, so the opposite of that would just be 6 over 2 times our a, which is 3. Well, 2 times 3 is 6, so that's 6 over 6, which equals 1. So our line of symmetry is 1, which makes sense. Here it is. Okay, so x equals 1. That's the line of symmetry. Remember to find the x well, we should take that and find the vertex. So we should use that x equals 1 to find the vertex. So plug 1 in 3 times, I'm going to undo that. So y equals 3 times 1 squared minus 6 times 1 minus 3. Okay, 1 squared is 1, so I've got 3 minus 6 times 1 is 6 minus 3. Okay, so 3 minus 6 is negative 3 minus 3 is y equals negative 6. Okay, so looking over here, oh yeah, there's the vertex. 1 comma negative 6. That's good. I'm glad that checks out. Okay, now thinking about two things. Okay, so for all of our graphs, forever, to find the y-intercept, we set x equal to 0. So you can do that in this equation. So wherever there's an x, let's put a 0. So we've got y equals 3 times 0 minus 6 times 0 minus 3. Okay, so that's 0 minus 3. So y equals negative 3. There's our y-intercept. Oh, hey, there it is. So we would write it as a coordinate. The x we set equal to 0. So that's 0, negative 3. Okay, for the x-intercept, or intercepts, set y equal to 0. So those are the two things to remember. All right, so we would have 0 equals 3x squared minus 6x minus 3. This is where we have to factor. Set y equal to 0, factor. Okay, so we're going to factor out that 3. It's going to make our problem much easier. X squared minus 2x minus 1. Okay, I'm just realizing that this won't factor, which applies to next unit, so I apologize for that. But that's how we would find our x-intercepts. We can't do it in this problem. But know that these are the steps to find the x-intercepts. And we'll look at more problems in class. I apologize for that. But I want to use this information, x-intercept. or y-intercept, x-intercept in our next slide here. If you look, I've got two other graphs. Hey, do you remember looking up here? This is a linear function. That's of that y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So if you look, same thing for that y-intercept. That's when we set x equal to 0, but we can see when x equals 0, this thing turns to 0, so we've got y equals 6. We can see that right here on the graph. There's that y-intercept of x is 0, y is 6. Okay, we could also find the x-intercept by setting y equal to 0 and solving. Like 0 equals negative 3x plus 6. So subtract 6, divide by negative 3, and x equals 2. How does that check out? Hey, right there. Okay, so remember, this is when y equals 0. So we've got 2, 0. There's our y-intercepts. Okay, I hope you recognize our slope. It's going down 3 and over 1. I'm going to write that just as a fraction so we can see that progression. Down 3 over 1. Okay, down 3 over 1. All information about linear. Oh, hey, let's look down here. We've got an exponential function. You thought you were done with those. That's of the form y equals a times b to the x. Sometimes the b is in parentheses, sometimes not. Remember, a is our y-intercept. B, growth or decay factor. Whew. Now, in this one, there is no x-intercept. It doesn't actually cross the x-axis. But we can look over here at the y-intercept. Remember when x is 0? That's because anything to the 0 is 1. So we'd have y equals 3 times 1, which is 3. Hey, right there, there's our y-intercept. When x is 0, y is 3. Okay, I'm looking here at a number inside the parentheses less than 1. That tells me it's decaying, which makes sense. The graph is going down. Our numbers are decreasing left to right. Wow, so much to think about. So what I want you to do, I want you to look at these 3 equations. Boom, boom, boom. I want you to tell me as much information as you can about each of those. Probably making sense. This one is going to have the most information you can say. Okay, but I'd hope you can tell me the name and just some parts of that graph, or you could graph it. So give that a try, see what you bring to the table, and or where your questions are. Thanks.